is way, way, way more to our human story on this planet and also off this planet, because our DNA, from my perspective, was shipped in different waves of energy from different star systems to build the prototype bodies that we now exist in. So there's all of that information coming into the mix now too, and all of the our genetics and off-planetary DNA is starting to fire up, I think.
Welcome to New Earth Podcast, where we dive into inspiring stories, profound wisdom, and insights from remarkable individuals who are driving the consciousness shift on our planet. If you're ready to elevate your awareness and well-being, you're in the right place. But before we dive into today's episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button and join our growing community. Together, we'll continue to explore the ideas and conversations that help you up-level your consciousness. Thank you so much for your support and your comments and for being part of this journey. Hello and welcome back to New Earth Co-Creators. In today's episode, we'll explore a question that many of us are asking ourselves at the moment. Why are so many of us feeling overwhelmed, sensitive, and disconnected from the old world? Today, I'm delighted to welcome David Manning, an energy worker and intuitive guide whose profound connection with the multidimensional realms offer us insight into the deeper shifts unfolding in humanity. And with quiet mastery, David translates complex energy patterns into accessible wisdom and shares perspective on collective fields of energy and healing of trauma held within the body and the DNA, and what it means to navigate this profound time on Earth. Welcome, David.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
It's lovely to connect with you because I've been to a couple of your lovely collective healing events that you do on a Sunday evening, and I felt really drawn to ask you on the podcast today. So I'd love you to tune in to what you feel is going on in the collective at the moment. What do you feel is shifting for humanity?
I think we're at a really significant point in our collective evolution. And something that I became aware of years ago is that I am particularly tuned in to the collective field. I work with individuals as well as with groups, but it is I'm sort of wired for collective work in a sense. And just this weekend, a lot of what I'm due to work with, it will show up when I'm working with an individual. So I'll see something emerging in their field, but it's at a level of their field that I know is, we've dropped out of the personal space of the energy field and we've dropped into the collective. And so we start working in that. And I know that this is something that I'm meant to work with at a group level. So it will either show up in that way or it shows up in my system. And this was something that showed up in my system over the weekend, which was I have an ongoing hip issue on the right side and it's working its way out. And as I tuned into this, I woke up early and I tuned in and was just doing a bit of energy work with my right hip. And I found that I was dropping through layer after layer after layer after layer of ancient civilizations, and it was like I was watching these civilizations collapse in my system. Some of these civilizations, I had no idea what time period they were. They seemed to be way, way, way before we have historical records. Some of these civilizations were not even on this planet. And this went on and on and on for about an hour. And all of a sudden, I found myself dropping into my sacrum, that beautiful triangular shaped bone at the base of the spine. And when I was there, I was looking down upon this female form that was surrounded by four knights, four Templar knights wearing the white tabards and holding their swords, and they all had their back to her. And I looked at this configuration of a woman surrounded. It was a naked woman, and she was surrounded by these four knights. And I heard the word Lilith, uh, and I haven't really explored the Lilith mythology much, but I knew that she was the original wife of Adam. Um, and I knew from what I was looking at, this configuration of four knights with their back to this naked woman, that they were standing in a configuration of protection, and that this represented my base chakra, which was now allowing this. What Lilith represents beyond all of the mythology is the primordial feminine energies, the energies of creation. And I think what this whole scenario shows me is that at a collective level, we are very ready now to drop through all of the layers of construct, all of the layers of our deep history, and come back to these seed points, and access the original energies of creation that is available to us now. We will still have a little bit of work to do in terms of clearing up the field and moving through all of those layers, all of these ancient civilizations that we've incarnated in. And within that framework, each of those civilizations, in a sense, represents its own type of distortion, its own type of separation or moving away from those original energies of creation. But the configuration I saw, the four knights surrounding, protecting, guarding this feminine energy, shows me that at this fundamental level, now at the level of the base, the foundational level, there is harmony between the masculine and feminine. And uh, that's one of the original roles of the masculine, is to create the container for the feminine to emerge into. And that's what this image of the four knights represented, in a sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, what beautiful, beautiful imagery. And I have quite a few questions coming out of that. I'll just start one. So, in terms of our collective experience at the moment, it's looking far from harmonious, that although that image is, and people, like I said at the beginning, are feeling overwhelmed with a lot of emotion coming to the surface. Do you feel that it's because we're working through all these different layers and lives and timelines, perhaps not only for ourselves, but also for the collective, and particularly as light workers, we're perhaps taking on a little bit more than just our own stuff at this time?
I think that's true, and I do think there seems to be enough to deal with if you look at the surface events on the planet, and that's enough to drive anybody a bit mad or to make you feel really, really upset, the state of the world. But add into the mix then all of the different levels and layers of clearing, and we have these extraordinary cosmic energies that are coming in through our sun. There is the most amazing opportunity for us now to work very, very deep and to allow those energies, the energies that are emerging from the core of the earth, and the energies that are coming in from the cosmos, are really drilling down into the dense layers of the human condition, the human construct that we have built on this planet, going back way, way, way beyond the tiny layer of history we have been told is real for us by scientists and archaeologists and this sort of thing. There's way, way, way more to our human story on this planet and also off this planet, because our DNA from my perspective, was shipped in different waves of energy from different star systems to build the prototype bodies that we now exist in. So there's all of that information coming into the mix now too, and all of the our genetics and off-planetary DNA is starting to fire up, I think, starting to come alive. And as it does so, as the energy moves into our DNA and starts to trigger it into awakening, that in itself creates a significant clearing of all of the layers that lie above it. And in one respect, that's exactly what my system was showing me over the weekend, dropping through all of these layers of civilization, coming back to the seed points, to the origin of the energies of creation, the masculine and feminine in balance, that encapsulates the whole story in a sense, whichever lens you choose to look at it through. But I do think it can be very confusing, and the way through the confusion is just sort of to surrender, to not need to know all of the details, all of the past life wounds and injuries and all of, I used to see those stories a lot, and now we tend to just drop through the stories and sort of carve our way through them without paying too much attention to the detail, because there's too much and we've done enough of that detail work. Now we can just move right the way through and clear through much more quickly and much more precisely almost. Does that make sense?
It does, and I love that you return to the imagery, that you saw as well, because it's very powerful, and that balancing of the masculine and feminine, that seems to be very much key, because we've had the suppression of the feminine, and allowing that balance within our own selves and within our own nervous system as well, because you've got the two hemispheres, left and right, being the masculine and feminine balance as well. So I'm interested in your take on, do you see this almost like a collective nervous system awakening and real shift in mode?
I do. I mean, I think, we've spent a lot of time, many hundreds, thousands of years, individualizing ourselves, moving away from tribal connectivity and tribal levels of awareness. But what we haven't realized is that essentially we are pack animals, we are herd animals, and we are one collective field, one body of humanity. However that looks, however that plays out on the surface, deep within, and this is how it shows up for me. I'm not saying this is the reality of it, but the energy field of the human collective shows up for me as a field within the earth, and we all are part of that construct. We all have our individual personality and our individual lives, but I don't think we realize yet, we're coming back to the realization, but I don't think we're there yet, how much we are moved by the collective impulses that move through the greater field of humanity. And so the work we do as individuals feeds directly back into that field, but we are also impulsed by the oversoul of humanity, in effect, that works through that. And not everybody is due to awaken in this time, I don't think, or come to these greater levels of awareness. And it's certainly not happening all at the same time, but many, many people now are feeling, well, they recognize that it's not as it was, and it's certainly not as it's meant to be, and that there are these different levels of awakening where people are waking up to the power games playing out on the planet, and other levels of awakening are awakening to the energetics of reality. What is actually the truth in terms of our energetic being. And it's easy to get caught up in the level of power games and manipulation, because all of that is fascinating, and we'll have a lot of emotion around that and indignation and how dare they, and we should fight, we should struggle. It's always been made very clear to me that um, not to pay too much attention to that level, because it is seductive, and it is a bit of a trap, but to drop deeper into our energetic reality and work at that level, because energy comes before matter. And if we work at the level of energy, we're working at the frequency of prayer and meditation, intention. Things move much more quickly, and we can have a bigger impact at that level. So we are all feeling the incoming light, the increase in light on the planet, the incoming cosmic impulses. Something interesting for me was that a couple of weeks ago, I hang out with trees a lot, and have dialogues with trees, and a lovely tree that I'm quite friendly with, in my local park, a yew tree. I was leaning against it, and I've had amazing healings from this tree over the years, and it showed me this beautiful swirl of energy above it, coming into its branches, into its leaf structure. And it said, "This is the light of distant stars, not the sun. This is the light of distant stars. I get 18% of my energy from distant stars. The same is true for you too. You need to pay attention to that." And I'm very aware of receiving, and I think most of us are very aware of feeling energized by the sun, sort of nurtured and supported by the sun, but we don't perhaps pay attention to receiving directly from the much more distant stars as a source of sustenance too. And the tree switched me onto that, and I've done some work with that since. And it's a very powerful, much more subtle level of our awareness, but one that we're coming back to because our collective sensitivity is growing all the time as we shed the layers of history that we have been wrapped in, the layers of conditioning and the all of the patterning that we have cloaked ourselves in. As that falls away, and it is falling away very, very quickly, then we start to feel these other levels of sensitivity, these other levels of support that are available to us. So it's not just the sun and the earth that we get our energy from, but it is the more distant stars, which are suns in their own right. And yeah, all of that needs to be brought into awareness too, I think. So
that's really interesting, because my understanding is that the more distant, certainly with the planets, the outer planets are much more linked to the collective. The closer they are, the more personal effect. And so with so many of us that are doing kind of collective work, that makes a lot of sense to be tuning in on that level.
It does. And I think because each of us will have a different trajectory through different star systems in terms of our evolutionary history. We'll have incarnated and had, perhaps many lifetimes of experience in different, with different groups of stars. And those are the stars that, if we open ourselves up to the heavens, to the distant stars, and of course, those energies are available in the day as well as the night. It doesn't have to be, we're always surrounded by the stars. Then the star light, the streams of light that come for each of us will be slightly different, because we have a different resonance with different groups of stars, perhaps because of our evolutionary trajectory through the star map. And I think that will probably change, as each of us evolves too.
Yeah, and it feels like during this time, more and more of that is coming online for people, those kind of galactic origins and heritage,
Yeah.
and
And it's
understanding
happening, there's much more of a conversation now about disclosure and the release of all of the information around UFOs and beings that perhaps have been visiting the Earth. And of course, we are those beings. It's I think it's a useful perspective to take to internalize it and recognize, oh, we are those beings. And of course, our star families have been visiting and interacting with this planet forever, because they shipped our DNA in to start the experiment in the first place. Um, Not all of those visitors are, have our best intentions at heart. Um, and of course, parts of our DNA will be those star beings too, the ones that are perhaps are um, not hugely aligned with light or don't have great contact with their heart center. And as we open up to those genetics within us, it ends the projection of, oh, the evil is outside of us. We bring it home and we integrate it and work with it at an inner level and create balance in that way. We're no longer seeing the bad guys as the ones over there. We work with those genetics within us. Years ago, I was asked to integrate my reptilian genetics, and it scared me. I didn't want to do that, but as I sat with it and sat with it, then I could recognize, actually, yeah, I have those personality traits. I have the personality traits too within me that don't want to have empathy for other people, that want to have my own way and get my will done above and beyond everybody else. We all have those sort of personality aspects, and that's the stuff we have to work in within ourselves and bring that into, that's the shadow work we all have to do as a part of this journey.
I'm fascinated with the work that you're doing with DNA. And before we sort of drop into the potential, and the kind of new human, one of the things you said early on in the conversation was that we're kind of working through all the different layers and levels. Do you have any recommendations for clearing personal, ancestral, collective trauma, that's associated to an individual?
So I think, when I first started doing this work, it was a really hard slog, it seemed like. And this was back in the end of the 80s and the early 90s, and it just felt like a real grind to move through stuff. And now, stuff that would have taken me 2 weeks to work through is moved through in a couple of minutes. It's that's partly because so many more of us have been doing the work, and that creates a field of support for that. And it's like that thing of Rogers Bannister breaking the record, breaking the 4 minute mile. As soon as one person does it, it becomes much, much more available. And then within the space of a year, lots of people had run that speed. It's the same for us. As soon as one person does it, it sets a template so that it becomes much, much more available. And as more and more of us do the work, then it becomes available to more and more people. And so now I think, and particularly with the extraordinary astrology we've just moved through, this moving undoubtedly into the new world, into the age of Aquarius, everything again becomes so much quicker. And so that experience I had over the weekend points to me to the fact that you can literally drop through the layers now without a struggle. It takes time and dedication and perseverance. But if you set up a field, and this is something else that really interests and intrigues me. When I'm doing a piece of group energy work, collective energy work, and I do these on a Sunday evening, we build a field that involves, our higher selves and our guides, the whole realm of nature spirits, the plants, the animal kingdoms, the crystal and the metals, the star families, the whole network of sacred sites on the planet, the dragon lines, the heart of the earth herself, the sun, the heart of the human collective. All of these different invitations are extended. So you build a strong field of intention, but also a hugely strong field of support. So do that for yourself. Build a field of support that might involve your higher self and your guides, the nature spirits, the crystals. That would be a good place to start. Perhaps the angels as well. And get used to meditating within that field of support and starting to communicate with that field of support, with the different elements of that field of support. You'll find that this is a great way to switch on your sensitivity, because each invitation, perhaps to the crystalline kingdom and then to the nature spirit kingdom, you'll feel the influx of energy with each of those levels. And perhaps this is what we'll do in our ending meditation, is have a movement through some of these different layers and different levels of experience, so that people get to feel those influxes of light as each of those sets of beings and collectives of energy come into the field. And then once you've established your working field, you can invite them to help you to drop through all of the layers of your historic construction, all of the layers of your personal history, and start with this lifetime, obviously, and see where you go, and then move into whatever layers of past life energy perhaps are tripping you up or holding you up, and then work through that. There's no hurry to do this. You just and it becomes a really fascinating journey, because lots of stuff starts to emerge. Again, it helps as we start to work into our own system. It helps activate our sensitivity and all of these different levels of awareness. And that isn't something that we need to be freaked out about or unsure of. These are natural abilities that come with the human energy field. They're just part and parcel of who and what we are. We have just been trained out of using these abilities over many, many lifetimes, and now they're starting to activate again. So all of the work we do in this sort of way helps to activate that. And it is simply a case of giving time and attention to it. And if you were to wake up a little bit earlier and lie in bed every morning and do that, set up the working field and just work through, you would be amazed at how quickly you move through stuff, and what you'd also be amazed at what comes up. And it gives us such an extraordinary understanding of the depth of what it is to be human. And not that we are human particularly, that's one aspect of what we are. That's the cover up, or the covering over our multidimensionality. But we are vast universal beings that have had existences in many different forms and in many different star systems and many different worlds, and many different time periods, So all of this starts to weave itself together. All of it starts to unify within us rather than being separate. And we start to get a sense of our greater beingness, as all of these things come together within us. I don't know
We,
whether what I
we
just
were
said.
speaking before we started recording earlier, and David and I shared that we're both sort of inherently shy people. So the fact we're doing podcasts, wasn't something that necessarily came naturally to us. And we spoke a little bit about the layers of persecution that we have to work through. Is that something you can speak to? Because I think for many light workers, that's a real theme that can get in the road of shining our light.
It really can, and it's a significant thing to move through. Is this fear of persecution, because it is deeply embedded within us. And there have been many layers of persecution happening on the planet. The Inquisition, which ran for hundreds of years, it used to show when I used to do individual readings when I worked at the College of Psychic Studies in London. I had one client after another walking into the room with that scar, the Inquisition scar, the scar of the the persecution of the witches, in effect, that embedded in their field, and we had to work with it to release that pattern. And then I realized it's a huge collective pattern because the Inquisition operated over hundreds of years. And even if you weren't directly affected, you knew of a family that was, or a village that was. And the sort of horrible tortures and killings that happened in the name of God, in the name of the Christian church, were utterly terrifying. And so that really worked to close down at a collective level humanity's willingness to open up and use our more subtle levels of sensitivity. Because if you were caught doing that, you were accused of being in league with the devil, and you might well die for that principle. And so, there are many layers of that, many levels of that. The persecution of the feminine, that is a big aspect of the persecution of the feminine, because the feminine is our more subtle sensitivity. That's the feminine aspect. It doesn't matter whether you're in a male or female body. So it's happened within all of us. And another good thing to recognize is if you're feeling victimized because you're in a female body and you're carrying a huge amount of the trauma of the feminine, or you feel you are, recognize that you will have probably incarnated in as many male bodies, and you will have been the persecutor just as much as you have been the persecuted, so that it helps to move you out of victim perspective and balance the experience, because we don't incarnate just in one role or another. We have a spread of experience across the board, because that's what will give us the greatest level of evolution. And there's nothing we have to be forgiven for, or forgive ourselves for even, because all of the experience, the darkest and the lightest experience, has just been played out for our greatest evolutions. We screw up and make a huge mess of things. We abuse the power we have in order to learn how not to abuse power. And I think many of us have that experience. We're frightened of taking or accepting greater levels of power because we've screwed up in the past. Well, we were meant to screw up. We were meant to have those experiences of abusing power so we would know not to do it again. So let yourself off the hook, and allow all of the feelings to emerge. That's another thing, is the depth of feeling we have is extraordinary, and there's a depth of history that is ready to emerge from within us, in order that we come back to clarity, in a sense, back to the truth. And we are all resonant with truth. It's something that exists within each of us. It's not something we have to find outside. As we do the work of clearing the layers, and truth emerges from within us, and we start to recognize what is and isn't truthful more easily outside, when we're watching, social media or whatever. And that's going to become a real battleground in the coming years. I think the distortion of truth, it's going to be very difficult to find what is true and what isn't, when we're looking at our external media. And so it becomes more and more important that you are anchored more deeply in your own truth, because
Yes.
you will feel the resonance of what is true for you. And that's going to be really important. Otherwise, it's going to be very easy to become lost.
Yes. Yeah, that's definitely something that's very important. And particularly with so much polarization, to stay in our own alignment with our own truth without getting overly attached so that it creates that kind of playoff. I'd love to speak into the future human. You've spoken a little bit about, that ability to see truth and some of the qualities that are coming online as we do that inner work. What do you feel is being activated in our DNA, and what are the potentials available to us during this time?
I think we're just at the start of that journey, to be honest. And I think this is going to unfold over the next few hundred years, to be honest. It'll be the generations that come after us that are really, which will be us too. We'll be incarnating then as well. But it's just now we're in that bridging generation of moving out of the old structures of control, the control paradigm, into much greater levels of freedom and an honoring of our individuality. Um, and as that emerges, we will. It's difficult to put it into words really because they all sound, it all sounds so a bit trite, but we will be living from our multidimensionality, all of those the abilities of multidimensionality, I think, will start to become more and more commonplace. So telepathic and the word psychic seems like such an old-fashioned word, but because it is just natural levels of communication, we start to feel everything at an energetic level, and we start to be in communion with trees, with plants, with animals, with rivers, with locations, with the planet herself, or those distant stars. You start to feel the incoming light from a star, and know that it's sending you a message. This sort of thing. It's about living in harmony with ourselves, and so that is the journey of healing, is that we live harmoniously within this body, without damaging with it, without denying it. And then we start to live more harmoniously within the greater whole, within the greater collective. So I think there's a return to things that we have known and lived in our ancient history, with the addition of technologies that are just starting to emerge now, the advent of AI. I mean, I don't think it's anything to be scared of particularly, but we have to be very aware of it. And I think it's in use in other star civilizations. And so we could ask for help in terms of how to integrate this harmoniously into life on this planet, without it becoming a dominating force, you know. So that's not a particularly clear answer because I don't have, oh, we're going to be living like this and walking through walls and I don't know exactly how that's going to play out, but I think it's going to the image that's playing behind my eyes is that we are literally shedding cloaks of identity now. We're still in that phase, and we will be much, much more living as the light body. What that means and how that plays out, I don't fully know, to be honest. But I think a lot of us are starting to live from those perspectives now. The interdimensional, multidimensional communication, all of that sort of thing is like a tiny glimpse into what it is. I think there's going to be a much more. We will have a much greater level of communion with our star families. That is something that we have lived in the past. I know this from memory that this planet used to be like a way station in a sense, and so there was lots of coming and going, and we were all a part of that. I think we were living that in Atlantis, perhaps for the last time at that level. But I think we will come back to that too. And I think as we start to really uh, open up our capacities for communion with the nature spirits and with the plant and animal kingdoms, there'll be technologies unveiled that are already within us and abilities in terms of working with food sources. That's another thing, actually. I think we're also moving towards um, remembering how it is to be sustained by light rather than by calories. And I think that's, again, over the next couple of hundred years, that will be something that becomes much more commonplace. As we become less dense, we need less dense food and sustenance and light. I mean, light already is our form of sustenance because it's sunlight that feeds the plants, that feeds the animals, that feed us. We'll just cut out all the middlemen and just be sustained directly by light.
Thank you so much for sharing all that. It now feels like a good moment to invite you to lead a meditation,
Okay,
if
let's
you're
do that.
open to that.
Yeah, totally, totally. I'm not entirely sure what this meditation will be, but we'll certainly touch into some of the themes we've touched on here, and it's a very simple meditation that will have a healing element to it. Okay, so how I always begin is start by closing your eyes and focusing inwards and connecting with the breath. So become aware of the breath in your nostrils and flowing down through the back of the throat, opening out into the lungs. And allow that breath to travel, to open out through your physical body, starting to lift out any levels, any patterns of tension that are holding. You can move the breath through any part of the body, directing the energetic aspect of the breath as chi, as life force. Move it into any areas of density, just unwinding there through the throat and the jaw, through the neck and the shoulders, dropping down through the spine, opening out spaces between the vertebrae. And just doing this, coming into contact and communion with the inner landscape of your body, is a part of this growing level of multidimensional awareness, because we ourselves are multidimensional, even within the body. And as we explore deeper and deeper into the body, it opens up more and more of its multidimensionality. Just using the breath to free up the muscles at the base of the spine and right the way through the pelvis, opening out the hip joints, coming to land in the pelvis, really rest in the pelvis, feeling held by the big bowl of the pelvis, feeling the legs underneath you, connecting to the earth. And if ever you are wondering, well, where should I focus my meditation? If ever you're feeling at a little bit of a loss, bring awareness to the heart. And so do that now, just coming into the focus of the center of the chest. This is perhaps the most extraordinarily available multidimensional portal that we have. And so just breathe here to unfold, to expand and open the heart center. And you could imagine it starting to open from within you, like a beautiful flower, perhaps like a lotus blossom or a rose, unfolding its many, many, many layers and levels of petals. Bring awareness deep into the heart of that flower and go deeper again and deeper still, recognizing there is no limit to the depth available to you here. Starting to sense the light of love that exists here within your heart center. We have never ever been separate from love. It's always present there on the inside. And now invite that love to emerge through your heart center, through all of these dimensions, all of these levels, all of these layers of petals that have opened up in the heart center. Continuing to drop deeper and deeper inside and allowing the radiance of your own heart to emerge right through every cell of your body, through every system of your body. You may sense we have been joined here by by a field of angelic energy that is assisting in the opening of the heart. They have just come in, so invite your guardian angel or the angels that are working with us just to help in the widening and opening of the heart. And as that field of energy really widens and expands, there's an unveiling starting to happen. So ask this team of support, the angels working with you, ask them to assist you in your unveiling right now. Whatever layers of density and separation are ready to open up and fall away, just invite them, the angelic realm, to assist you in freeing yourself up, all the while staying deeply centered, breathing into the emerging radiance of your heart, carrying that, washing it through every cell of your body, every system of your body, every structure in the body. You could take a moment, any places that are particularly calling for your attention, any wounds, any aches, any illnesses, direct the energy of your heart into those places in your body and allowing this heart radiance to extend itself outwards all around you so that you sit deeply immersed in a field of radiance that emerges from the depths of your heart. And as you sit in that radiance, recognize this light, this love that is the core of your being, that is what you are. Recognize that this dissolves trauma, dissolves belief systems, it dissolves wounds and patterns that keep you in limitation and lack. So invite that. Ask for help from the team of angelic beings that have gathered with us. Recognize this radiance emerging from your own heart, literally loosens from your cells, from the physical body, from the etheric body, from the emotional body, and mental body loosens all of the patterns and structures that keep us locked in limitation, that keep us believing we are small, separate, and isolated. And keep coming back to the center of the heart and breathing here to invite more depths of love and light to emerge. Everything is there, present on the inside. Invite this loving radiance to penetrate into your DNA, clearing your ancestral patterning, the wounds, the fears, the experiences they had that we can't even imagine now. Slowly lifting out of the structure of the DNA, no longer sending its messaging into our frequency, being disintegrated and disentangled, so that there is more clarity of signaling, more harmony of functioning as we access deeper levels of truth that is already encoded within our being. And this penetrating light radiating from the heart goes deeper into the DNA, past the human ancestral levels, into the seed points of origin, through all of the layers of history, all of the civilizations we have lived within, many of which are not even recorded or recognized, dropping through all of those layers into the seed points of this experience, this realm of the human experience on this planet, the points of origin, the coming together of the masculine and feminine energies of creation, neither one or the other in dominance, but both working in complete harmony and union. That's already present deep within us. Allow that to surface. Allow that to be the truth. And take a moment to rest in that space, bathed in the loving light of your own heart, held in the complete harmony and balance of the emerging masculine and feminine creative principles at work there, deep within every cell, deep within your DNA. Just take a moment to rest there, making it real for you. And then slowly come back to the light at the center of your heart, knowing that this is always present. We are never, ever separate from love, regardless of what external circumstances may go straight. Feel that light radiant from the center of your heart, penetrating through the whole of your body, and become aware of all of your body. Feel your place within it. Feel your sitting bones connecting to the seat, the chair underneath you, your feet on the floor. Feel the strength of your spine. Feel the tips of your fingers. Feel the love that you are embraced by and that emerges from within. When you are ready, open your eyes.
Thank you, David.
My pleasure. I'm never quite sure where they will lead, but yeah, I hope that was okay.
That was beautiful. Thank you. That was very powerful.
Good.
Is there anything you would like to share before we close today?
I'm not often given details about what's unfolding in the future. The only detail I'm ever given is it's going to be okay. And that's what I keep being told. It's going to be okay. It's easy to get caught up in worry and anxiety, but it's going to be okay. And more quickly so if we do that sort of inner work, those sort of, you don't have to do mind meditations. There are millions and millions and millions available, but each of us has to make it okay for ourselves. And that's never been as easy as it is now. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you so much for coming on today and sharing all your wisdom. It's been a real pleasure to chat with you.
Yeah,
and
likewise.
I'm going to put all your details in the description so people can find you and get in contact with you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, David. And thank you, everyone at home, for listening in. See you next time. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.